Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutare Swayam Rupa Garamayam Dharati Swapanadhikam Vandeham Shri Guru Siyata Prakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Pitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishikan Vitam Jam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesa Sunyavali Paskata Desadhari Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Kadada Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakti Vinu Panchatattva Makam Karam Bhakta Rupa Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Kaurtsaye Namah Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhikanta Namostatim Jayatam Saruto Pango Mama Mater Mater Gadi Matsavashapadam Bojara Adhanamaranam Sriman Rasarasadim Bamsi Vana Karsan Venevishan Rupike Upinata Sri Asaram Divyad Brindarani Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Shima Sanisto Sri Radha Shudagovindana Prestadavihi Samamanam Shmarami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Taya Jajikati Taya Krishnaya Govinaya Namo Namaha Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gudarajaja Mangalam Panidikaksho Mangalaya Tanovadi Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodyatehe Om Mahadevi Vidmahi Vishnu Padniti Dimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodyatehe Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Sare Sare Hare Priya Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Tapti Kanchana Gorangi Radhavindavaneswari Vishavanesate Devi Pranamani Piri Piri Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutade Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dhanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pachani Nivishesa Sunyamati Paskata Desara Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Kadadar Shiva Sariko Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday, Rob on Zoom, Brent, Natasha, Hare Krishna to both of you. We had another birth on Friday, actually. No, that couldn't be so. No, there was one birth on Friday. We had another birth yesterday. And it's true, we don't usually have births this time of year. We breed for spring. Because if it's cold and the baby gets pushed out of the womb, the baby's all wet and it's cold, it could freeze, cause the baby to get pneumonia. But it's not that cold yet. And the pregnancies must have been somebody jumped over the fence, or maybe twice, because we got two fall babies, which were unplanned. However, the temperature is not too bad during the day, 50s, high 40s, sunny. And then the babies have little coats at night. The baby that was born yesterday was born in the afternoon, out in the field. And so she spent the day getting a lot of exercise, developing her muscles, stretching out after having been packed in the womb for 11 months, following her mom around. But she hadn't drunk, as far as we could tell, by the evening. Mom's a first-time mom. And oftentimes the first-time mom, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to stand still and let the baby drink. Also, the teats are plugged with a sort of a plug of wax. And it's often the case that the baby's, number one, the baby's not strong enough to suck hard enough to get that wax out. And number two, it's slightly painful initially to get that wax out of the tit and let the milk flow. Once the milk flows, the mother gets an immense amount of pleasure from that flow. And she's just as eager to feed the baby as the baby is to drink. But you have to get over that one speed bump, so to speak, of the plug of wax. So I was in the temple yesterday, and we were concerned that the baby, although the baby was up and around and walking and running, we hadn't seen the baby drink. There were no signs of it. And so Bhai Bobby wanted to remove those wax plugs from the tits of the mother before we went to bed. Now, I was in the temple watching things, running the gift store. There were a number of guests there eating. There were some students from BYU on a world religion. We were having a session. So fortunately, Raleigh showed up, threw himself into the breach, and yeah, the mother got restrained, and Raleigh reached under there and got those plugs out. Usually the mother's quite resistant to that. But he got those plugs out. He got the milk flowing. And happy to report this morning, Bobby says the baby's drinking great, huge mouthfuls of milk, and the mother is standing proud. It's important they get that mother's milk early because it's got all the cholesterol, and that cholesterol contains lots of immunity in it. So everything looks good for our newborn baby. The only thing is we don't have any names. One name was proposed, Tulsi, for the white baby that was born last Friday. The baby that was born yesterday is kind of a grayish brown color. So if you have any names, yeah, we're open to suggestions. A couple of days ago, we mentioned why it was that the crocodile hit Gajendra so ferociously. Normally, I don't think a crocodile would attack an elephant. An elephant's just too big and too powerful for it. It would look for smaller animals that it could basically. The way the crocodile kills is not so much by biting, but it latches onto its prey, drags them into the water, and then the crocodile kind of turns. It starts to revolve, and it takes the prey with it. The prey's in its jaws. You can't even imagine how many pounds of pressure there are in the upper and lower teeth of the crocodile. There's no way the prey is getting free, and it will spin deep within the water, take the prey underneath water and spin and effectively drown. Generally, the prey won't die from wounds or lacerations. It'll die from drowning. Well, that modus operandi is not going to work with a 5,000 pound or whatever it is, 2,000 pound elephant. So one wonders why the croc literally bit off more than he could chew. And the answer is, of course, the real answer is it's a divine arrangement. It's, we're going to learn some valuable life lessons from this incident, as unusual and unique as it is. But from a superficial point of view, just imagine, put yourself in the position of the croc. The water's your home. You feel a sense of proprietorship. There's been a certain predictability in that area, in that environment for who knows how many hundreds, if not thousands of years. And all of a sudden, who does he think he is? He's come sashaying through the jungle, making loud noises, pulling up, uprooting trees and throwing them aside, dislodging boulders, making the earth tremble, putting on a show for his wives and his kids. Crocodile finds this distasteful. First of all, he feels the shaking of the earth. He feels the disruption. He comes to the edge of the pond thinking, like, what in the world? And then he sees the elephant and he says, who do you think you are, coming into my territory, my house, my place of residence, and making, using it as a stage for your posturing and pretensing. I'm going to teach you a lesson. You've gone too far. You've overstepped yourself. Now, speaking of overstepped, I think you have to agree, if you're sane and sober, that we've all overstepped ourselves. We've all voluntarily, with a forethought, at some distant point in time, traveled from the eternal spiritual world, where life is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, where everything is safe and blissful, where we have the shelter and protection of the Lord. We have our original spiritual bodies, which cannot be cut or burned or dried or drowned. And we voluntarily, just for the sake of experiencing a little sovereignty, out of envy of the Lord is sovereign. And we wonder, well, what would it be like for me to have some of that sovereignty? And because of that curiosity, that divergence of interests, that disparity, that what we call duality, dvandva moha, we come into the illusion that we can handle whatever this material world throws us. We've dropped down. We've become, the eternal spiritual form has been covered with the material world form, which we talked about the other day. There's 50 million ways this body can die. I read something now, the variants from the COVID, particularly the Omicron. Omicron itself was a variant of the original COVID virus. And each variant takes into consideration the lethal effects of the previous vaccines and mutates itself. Think of that. It mutates itself to resist the effects, the killing effects of the vaccine. So every time you come up with a vaccine, it works for a while because the virus hasn't seen it before and it kills. But after a while, the virus, imagine this, a virus, a subatomic particle, can't even see it, but it has the innate intelligence, survival instincts to mutate itself to become immune from each and every vaccine you come up with. And the latest news is that some of the variants of the Omicron strain of the COVID virus are extremely antibiotic resistant, extremely antibiotic resistant. I remember many years ago in the winter, we were selling cookies to raise money to build the Spanish Fork Temple. And it was very hard to sell cookies outside the doors of department stores, grocery stores in the winter. And so we go to South. And I remember one year we were doing cookie sales in Palm Springs, Cathedral City, La Quinta. And I had gotten a mole removed from my abdomen, but a local dermatologist, I won't mention his name, he's still in business. And I had this little minor surgery, this excision. And the next day I got in a vehicle and I went down to Cathedral City to do some cookie sales. Well, by the fourth or fifth day, that area where the excision had been taking place was red and it started swelling. And then there began to be a band which started going around my waist. So I checked into the Eisenhower Hospital there in Palm Springs, and they said, you've got a staph infection. And they put me on an IV for 4 hours a day I came in. And then they gave me a certain antibiotic. I forget what, vancomycin, I think it was. And it did. The redness and the swelling went down. I was in the area selling cookies, doing my thing for about a week, going to the hospital every day, taking IV and getting antibiotics. And it seemed like the infection was under control. Well, I finished my round cookie sales and I went back to Utah. And after 2 or 3 days, it was back with a vengeance. It was redder. It was more swollen than ever before. And in the meantime, the day I left, they finally, after a week, I don't know why they didn't think of it earlier, they took a sample, they took a tissue sample, sent it to the lab. They said, we'll call you the results when you get back in Utah. I said, are you sure I'm free to travel? Yeah, you're free to travel. Well, no sooner I get back in Utah than it comes raging back. And I get a phone call that says, you have a resistant strain. You have a particular strain of staph, which is immune to the antibiotics we've been giving you. In other words, they did no good at all. Held it back for a brief period of time, and now it's raging again. So then I had to have an IV that I actually carried around with me for a week. I went to the local Timpanogos hospital, and based on the laboratory results, they gave me an even more cutting edge antibiotic. And it was in a permanent IV. I had to carry it. When I was driving, I'd hang the bag with the antibiotics on the rear view mirror, and it would be, and that finally took care of it. But my point is that this is a dangerous place. We should not have come here in the first place. We are not equipped to deal with it. What this material world can throw at us, 52 million ways of dying. We don't have the ability to counter up, particularly on Yashe Kudishid, Savisham Nasamagad. When Vidura came back from pilgrimage and met his brother, Dhritarashtra, he said, the ravages of material nature, old age, birth, disease, and death, you can mitigate them to some degree, life expectancy now is longer than it had been, say, in the Middle Ages. Certain diseases are dealt with by vaccinations, at least for the time being. You can mitigate, but ultimately, particularly on the Yasha Hakuda, ultimately you cannot. There's nothing you can do to counteract birth, death, disease, and old age. We're helpless in the face of these ravages. And so if you go into a dangerous place, then all you can expect is danger. Some or other, we've come into this material world, which is dangerous at every step. Some should tell you, every step in this material world is dangerous. You go to a rock concert in Israel and you end up a captive, you end up killed, wounded, losing a limb. Your idea was to go and to enjoy, to relish, to celebrate life, and look how it turned. Look how it went south so quickly. The hatred, the bitterness, the violence. As if this material world wasn't dangerous enough in the first place, most of our science and technology has resulted in more efficient ways of killing. You get killed from the sky now. You get killed from the sky. You don't even see it coming. A missile, a drone, a bomb, you don't even see it coming. 1 minute you're walking along, breathing, singing maybe. You've got a granola bar in your hand. The next minute you're a vapor. This is the credit of modern civilization. We came into a very dangerous place. And with the development and advancement of our technology, we've made it 1,000 times more dangerous. And in the past, if two powers had an issue with each other, they would stand mano a mano. They would stand face to face with a sword, and they would have it out. And generally speaking, the kings, the leaders, the heads of states would be the first ones to engage in combat. It was perfectly up and above board. Nowadays, what do? You build tunnels like rats. You build tunnels. You come out of your rat-like tunnels. You break a ceasefire. You break into people's homes. You rape women. You behead them. You put babies in ovens. You run back and you hide in your tunnels with your hostages like rats. How things have changed. How things have changed from what at the time of the Srimad Bhagavatam was honorable war. The war at Kurukshetra did not involve a single citizen. It was, the war was taken, just like in a, you have a scene. Well, let's take it outside. You're in the high school hallway. Well, let's not fight here. Let's take it outside. So war was never, it never involved citizens, children, old people, women in Vedic India. The Kurukshetra field was a special place where soldiers, kings went to work out their issues face to face. And it was a beautiful spectacle, actually. There were horses, there were elephants, there were chariots. The soldiers had their flags, beautiful, colorful flags, each of which had an emblem on it. Arjuna had the emblem of Hanuman the monkey. Bhisma had a palm tree. The armor was beautiful, the weapons. It was a spectacle. And the citizens used to find a high place, and with their umbrellas and all, they would watch the hostilities unfolding beneath them. And nowadays, if we come to this world is not our friend. This world is designed to undo us, to take away anything that we build up, anything that we worked hard for. Ultimately, the last chapter in this material world is loss. It's Maya's job to see that we work hard for something illusory, something temporary, and then after having put in all that hard work, just at the point when we think we're going to enjoy it, she takes it away. She takes it away. How many couples, elderly couples, they work hard, the wife raising the kids, grandchildren, the husband running a business, paying the bills and all. And finally the kids are grown. They're taking responsibility for your own kids. So you buy a motor home, or you book a cruise. And after the third or fourth day on the cruise, the husband dies of a heart attack, or the wife dies of a heart attack. That idyllic retirement cruise, that idyllic retirement RVing, camping trip around America that you'd work hard for and you dreamed of for 50 years. No sooner does that door open than one or another of the partners kicks off. We had a group last Friday, I believe it was, from all the way from Boise, Idaho, had come on a field trip. They were high school level kids, and one of the questions was, do you have any rules? You know, being a spirit in this material world and wanting to reconstitute ourselves in the world from which we came, to get back to where it's safe and where it's sane. Do you have any guidelines? Do you have any rules? Just like a diseased person, if they want to climb their way back to health, back to robustness, back to strength and feeling good, there may be certain foods they shouldn't eat. There may be certain activities they should avoid. I said, yes. I said, if you're in the jungle, if you find yourself in the jungle, that's very dangerous in and of itself. So you don't want to, for instance, be drunk in the jungle, do you? Even sober, it's debatable as to whether you're going to survive. If you get drunk in the jungle, you're definitely not going to survive. So obviously, intoxications are one prohibition. The other is gambling. Gambling has nothing to do with everyday reality. It's nothing to do with getting through life. It's an entirely selfish preoccupation, which leaves you wide open for disease, for financial loss, for disaster. So no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. You know, how many crimes, how many murders are committed in the name of illicit sex? So if you're in a dangerous place, the most risky thing you can do is to be promiscuous. It's to play around, to check out every girl, or if you're a girl, to check out every boy, to contemplate, to spend a few beats more than is decorous checking out the passing girl or checking out passing boy. You're just opening yourself up for disaster. Even talk about elephants. The biggest, strongest bull elephant that no other living entity in the jungle can defeat. He himself is defeated by his genitals. He himself is defeated by his attraction to the opposite sex. The hunters know when he's in rut, when he's in heat, he doesn't have the same care and concern that he would normally have. Normally, when he's not inflamed by lust and he's walking along a forest path and he sees a part of the path where there are leaves and brush on the path, normally, when he's sharp and focused, he would think there's something wrong with that, and he would go around it. He would smell something rotten in Denmark. But when he's inflamed with lust, he doesn't notice the minutiae, he doesn't notice the details. And so therefore, he's much more vulnerable. So the hunters know this, and they train up the she elephants to come before the male elephant and to get him going, get him turned on. And then the she elephants lead him along a narrow forest path in which a pit has been built. And in that pit are sharp stakes which can impale, skewer anybody who falls into that hole. And the hole is covered over, camouflage with leaves, banana leaves and so on. Now the female is trained to go around, to skirt the edge of that, but the male in rut just bulls his way through, and he fails to notice this anomaly in the middle of the forest path, the suspicious leaves. He falls in, and then he's killed. He's skewered, and the hunters, poachers cut off his tusks. So his weak point is his genitals. Therefore, in this dangerous material world, we prohibit, for those who want to cross over or get through the jungle back to safety, we prescribe no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, and finally, no meat eating. No meat eating. If for no other reason, the arrangement, the huge arrangement to have meat, to have a piece of flesh on your plate, the amount of land that's squandered by raising cattle, the amount of water to produce a 700-pound steer for slaughter, that steer consumes as much water as would float a destroyer. Tremendous waste. The amount of land which it takes to support one vegetarian, it takes 12 times more land to support someone who eats meat. One hamburger, in terms of energy and resources, would equal 12 loaves of bread. If you're on a deserted island and you had to choose between one or the other, would you rather have 12 loaves of bread or one hamburger? So if for no other reason, the practice of meat eating, it consumes so much of our time. Tangentially, our time should be focused on safely navigating the dangers, the jaguars, the leopards, the lions, the tigers, the poisonous plants, the parasites, the spiders, any number of snakes and vipers. We have to be completely alert and completely focused. The whole industry of meat eating, with its trucks and its refrigeration and slaughterhouses and its restaurants, and the whole thing is simply a distraction from the main purpose, which is to get from here back to home, back to God. Om Asadom Ad Sabge Om Tamashom Madhyodiga Om Meditam Madhamidam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Your only mission in this human form of life is to go from more death to deathlessness, from that which is temporary to that which is eternal, from that which is dark to that which is light. Anything else is just a distraction, and it brings unhappiness. We're trying so hard for happiness in this material world, and yet at every stage, there's only misery. We think we want to enjoy, we want to be happy. So the first calculation is, I need money. And yet we have to work so hard. We have to put up with so much nonsense from the boss, from coworkers. Sometimes we have to be out on a winter's day, freezing our hands, getting frostbite in order to get money. And that is dukkha. That's not happy. That's troublesome. And then once we get the money, how do we keep it? How do we keep and protect the money? That's also miserable. There was a cartoon, a lady arrived at the pearly gates and she was just about to be checked in by Gabriel. And she says, oh my gosh, did I leave the oven on? So protecting what you have, protecting your assets that you acquired with that hard-earned money is another source of stress, trouble, and misery. And then losing the money, of course, and you just cry. Oh, I worked so hard. My mother, as I've mentioned this several times, she called me when she was in an old age home. The old age home cost $5,000 a month for the care that she was getting. Sold the home, living on my father's military pension and her own Social Security. She wailed to me over the phone. I spent my whole life acquiring, and that was so much trouble. That was so much trouble. Then in the middle stage of life, keeping the money safe from the government, from thieves, from rogues, from hackers, from ID thieves, from animals, from burglars. So many different entities would like to steal our money from us. And now in old age, I have to spend all of that hard money and translate the house into cash so that I can pay $5,000 a month. There was a joke I remember seeing many years ago. I think it was in the New Yorker magazine. The patient, who was quite elderly, was sitting across the desk from the doctor. And the patient was saying to the doctor, and they told me that these would be the golden years. Obviously, a mood of frustration about the elderly patient. He's saying to the doctor's little bubble with his words, they told me that these would be the golden years. And the doctor responds, his bubble says, well, I find them so. I saw something on the internet yesterday that older people right now, they can't afford healthcare. They cannot afford healthcare when the ravages of old age and disease come upon them, even though they've worked their whole lives for happiness, for security. They cannot afford the cost of healthcare. So getting money is troublesome, miserable. Keeping the money is miserable, troublesome. Protecting the money is miserable, troublesome. And ultimately, inevitably, losing money. So let me ask you this. Where in all of this is happiness? In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 13th verse, text number 33, Prahlad Maharaj says, those who considered materially powerful and rich are always full of anxieties because of governmental laws, thieves and rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, the inevitable time factor, and even their own selves. Thus, they are invariably afraid. And the kicker is, the most ironic part of all of this is that amongst all the other things and entities and people who are out to get your money, the foremost of which we're afraid is often ourselves. Ourselves. We're always second guessing ourselves. Even this Elon Musk, he's fabulously wealthy, but now he's being sued for something he said to a teenager. Some of his the people, the shareholders, they want to oust him from his position. So even this richest man in the world, his position is unstable. His position is subject to loss. The fellow recently that formed the biggest AI company in the world was kicked out by the board of directors. Steve Jobs also. It's a same old story. Nothing new here. One fears oneself. Did I make a decision that the board of directors don't like? Did I say something to this teenager that he's now going to target me and sue me for and be on the evening news smearing my name? Did I protect my money in the proper way? Is it in the right bank? Is it in the right account? Do I have the passports set up? Do I have the firewalls in the right way? The more money you have, especially in this digital age, it seems like the more anxious you're going to be because those hackers are so good out there. China, Eastern Europe, there are so many hackers there, and their sole purpose in life is to take what you have sweated for, what you have lied for, what you have stolen, and steal it from you. And if they do succeed in stealing it from you, what's the wrong there? It's just karma. It's just things coming back full circle. So the conclusion in all of this, and I hate to be so negative today, is that if you're sick, if you're in a place of danger, you don't do those things which exacerbate the disease, which exacerbate the danger. You want to give yourself a chance. If you're sick, you want to give yourself a chance at least to get well. If you're in the jungle, you want to give yourself a chance at least to make it through safely. And most people don't. Most people are so blind and so misled that they take off of the table any slim, slight chance they might have to navigate the dangerous waters of this material world and be successful. The first business of successful life is to ask, who am I? You're not this body you're living in, your eternal spirit soul, so where should I begin? Every living entity, including you, is immortal. It's the inner center self, which is true. The outer body, misty like morning dew, musty and crusty after youth passes, earth to earth, dust to dust, ash to ashes. Every 7 years, each cell is replaced. The old body is erased, displaced, effaced. Every cell is changing. You're always reincarnating. Now, what are you going to do to overcome transmigration and save yourself from the taint of material contamination. You can ignore the concept and hit the exit by the nearest route, or you can stay and listen to our lyrics and get a vision of the truth. Does your life have meaning, or just trying to escape? Are you just breathing, taking up space? Most people are not open. They do not want to know. Most people are not open. They do not want to know. But the question I propose from me to you is, do you have the eyes to see? The soul is eternal and never grows old. The soul is eternal and never grows old, and we know it inside. Like, why should I have to change my body again? This is the meaning of human sense. If I'm eternal, why all the external posturing pretense? My time would be better spent overcoming rebirth and rising high into the spiritual sky. The human life is a unique opportunity to overcome the cycle of rebirth, which no one survives. Time to realize your eternal state and attain the spiritual world one day. We have free will to make our own decisions, but we have to face the reactions to the way we've been living. Sense enjoyment is fleeting and shabby. We do it over and over, but it never makes us happy. Not knowing our true nature, we cater to all this temporary stuff, but it's never enough. We cage ourselves in this prison, numb our consciousness' crummy position. We allow the media to condition us to shop for addition to this body, which we're not. Ignorance causes dissatisfaction of the soul. We can't imagine why we're not happy. Then we go old, get crabby, go cold. It's hard to turn back. Once your soul's been sold, if you don't know why you're here, and be honest, you don't, you might find out if you considered the soul. So the crocodile that attacks Gajendra represents all the danger, all the unhappiness, all the frustrations. And we want to be married because we're getting older and all our friends from high school are married. But as soon as we get married, then we stay at the office until 10 p.m. at night because we don't want to go home to the strife and the tension of the home. There's a story that there's a certain sweet, a certain type of laddu, that if you've never tasted it, all you hear about from everybody, oh, you got to taste this laddu, you got to taste this laddu. So you go around waiting till that moment, planning, getting excited about the moment you'll taste this laddu that everyone's talking about. Of course, the laddu is compared to sex life. When you're young, everybody's talking about sex, sex, sex. You wonder, what is this sex? What, it must be really great. Everybody's talking about it. So you spend your youth not living in the moment, not taking advantage of every moment, living life to the full, enjoying the journey, but you're just living for that moment when you're going to taste that laddu or have that sex. The problem is once you taste that laddu, it's so unique. It gives you such a rush that from that time on, all you can do is think of that laddu and you want to taste it again. The problem is the first taste was the best. The second taste was not as good as the first taste. The third taste was not as good as the second taste. The fourth was not as good as the third. But the addiction is there. The chemical dependency develops. Every time you taste that laddu, it's less tasty, it's less fulfilling, it's less palatable, but you're more determined to do what it takes to taste it again. So our whole youth, we spend hearing about sex, and finally we get married, we get sex, and then it consumes our whole life. And the pleasure of sex diminishes in the face of all the different responsibilities and the stresses that come. Once we get our heartstrings tied with the heartstrings of our spouse and the opposite sex, then there's nothing but responsibilities. There's nothing but expansion, more money to buy a bigger vehicle for more kids, to buy a bigger house, to move from an apartment to a house with more bedrooms so we can accommodate a growing family, additional medical expenses, longer hours at the office, more tension between the husband and wife. We spend our whole youth, can't wait for sex and marriage, and then when we're in marriage, we dream nostalgically about our youth. There was a joke I heard at the time of marriage, at the time of presiding over the exchange of vows of the young couple. The priest took the young man aside and clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Congratulations, son, you're at the end of all your problems." And based on everything he'd heard from his associates, fellow kids in high school and all, he thought, yeah, from here on in, my problems are solved. Everything's happy. He came back a year later. He grabbed the priest by the collar, clenched his fist. He's gonna punch him in the mouth. The priest said, why do you want to be punched? He said, when you married me, you lied to me. You told me that I was at the end of all my problems. And the priest said, no, I didn't lie to you. I told you at the end of all your problems. I just didn't tell you which end. So we're not happy being young. We want to be older. We're not happy being single. We want to be married. No sooner we get married than we have to have a bigger house. We're not happy with the house we're in. We're not happy with the car. We're not happy with our income. We're not happy with a small piece of land. We're not happy with working for somebody. We have to start our own business. In this material world, those who are small are troubled by the big. Just think of all the havoc that tiny, invisible little COVID virus started causing in 2019. And what is it now? It's almost 2024, and it's still there. It's still causing trouble. That small, microscopic virus is still disrupting economies, disrupting whole countries. But at the same time, we're a scourge for them. We invent vaccines, we invent pesticides, we try to kill the mice, we try to kill the mosquitoes, we try to kill the flies, we try to kill the ticks. So whether you're big or whether you're strong, there are so many threats. There are so many problems that come in the life. The problems come, analogously speaking, we'll end with this appropriate example, I believe. It's like tennis balls, isn't it? When you're on the tennis court, your opponent is hitting over the net in your direction, one ball after another. And the job of your opponent is to have those balls coming at you at angles and in places it's very hard for you to get to them. And they're meant to come one after another. No sooner do you solve the problem, do you race like crazy to get to a position where you can return one of those shots and you hit it back, you don't get a moment to congratulate yourself. You don't get a moment to pat yourself on the back, because then the opponent is then volleying back and bringing you to the other side of the court. So you immediately, you dealt with that problem, but there isn't a moment's respite. Immediately then you have to run to return the ball again and again and again and again. Keep running and parrying and hitting, and it never ends. There's never a time. In fact, the older you get, you lose a step, and then you lose another step, and you lose another step. So you find as time marches on that you're less quick, you're less agile, you're less expert, you're less adept. You start missing more and more shots, losing more and more points. And eventually, no matter how brilliant or how many rallies or how many great shots you might have made earlier on in the game, everyone is destined to lose the tennis match in this material world. Doesn't matter how good you are, how expert you are at certain points in your life, eventually you're going to end up bankrupt, bereft of speed, bereft of focus, bereft of intelligence, bereft of resources, bereft of energy. This world will ultimately end in loss. So if we have to lose everything, if that's inevitable, if we're insightful enough to see that everything, including this body, what to speak of my wife and my relatives and my cousins, is going to be taken away, why in the world wouldn't you be intelligent enough, according to the advice of the great successful acharyas who are residents themselves of the spiritual world, why wouldn't you follow in their footsteps instead of the footsteps of the misled, blind, so-called modern leaders, why wouldn't you follow the great souls and voluntarily use your life, your body, your youth, your talents, your resources? Try to engage your wife, your children, your countrymen, your employees in the service of the Lord. Give to the Lord voluntarily what is going to be forcefully taken away from you in the end. And instead of coming to the end of your life frustrated, full of stress and anxiety, beating your head against the ground, you will have successfully navigated this dangerous jungle of the material world, and at the end, get through on the other side to go back to home, back to Godhead with you, your wife, your children, your friends, your associates. When. The choice is ours. The endless frustration, misery, and loss of this material world, or a life of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, simply by dovetailing whatever we have in the service of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Chad says, what a beautiful shot in the background. That's an aerial photo of our complex here, at least most of it. A temple. These three are where the Color Festival takes place, where we have entertainment. This was originally a performing arts center, but it's now a warehouse for colors, and we wholesale all over the country. Thanks for joining us, Chad. Kushum Demon, howdy bo. I believe Kushum lives in Logan. I hope you've gotten your calendar. I spent the last few weeks sending out batches of calendar. Some of you should be receiving your calendars about now in the mail. 2024 calendars. Now here's some verse from Brent. We shouldn't have come here in the first place, but now we need to face the disgrace of your case. Work out your issues face to face. Embrace Krishna's merciful grace to race back home. Beautiful. We shouldn't have come here in the first place, but now we need to face the disgrace of our case. Work out your issues face to face. Embrace Krishna's merciful grace to race back home. It's beautiful. Shali, Hare Krishna. You'll get your calendar. I think I just sent it off yesterday. Natasha, let me know when you all get your 2024 calendars. You do that. Natasha, I'll have to share Natasha's song. I don't think I have it here with me now. I'll bring it up and screen share it next week, most likely. She sent me 3 songs that she put together with the help of AI, artificial intelligence. By Bobby. By Bobby's recovering from a cracked rib. The baby that was born last Friday, she was carrying it from out in the field into the underneath shelter where it would be somewhat protected from the elements, and she tripped over one of the guy wires of the radio station, cracked a rib. So she's recovering slowly but surely. And now another baby to take care of on top of the one that was born last Friday. So let's pray for by Bobby that she doesn't get too wound up. When she gets wound up, she has accidents. She doesn't watch where she's going. She breaks things and twists things and tears things. So let's hope that she has a little bit of respite from all these bursts and responsibilities so she can heal from her current affliction. Rob, can you share with us any verse yourself? We've had one verse from our Facebook gallery, quite a good one from Brent.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Natasha,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very, very clearly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a Sanskrit word for Radha's covering of Krishna when he came down as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but maybe that llama should be called that because it protected Vaibhavi from getting far more injured than if she hadn't been carrying it.
So you're suggesting Radha or some sort of...
Yes.
Okay, I'll pass that on to her. In fact, I think she's on board here on Facebook. She may have heard your comment, your suggestion as well.
But and that was a really good one from Brent. I've actually got a similar one, so we'll hear that when I get to it. But
Okay.
First comes first. Avoid the crocodile spin. Find your happiness within.
Avoid the crocodile's what?
Spin.
Spin? Oh, yeah. Good.
When the ego is the size of an elephant, humility must be heaven sent.
Krishna has to intervene at that point.
It should not be our concern to try and be sovereign.
Absolutely. Truer words were never spoken.
The human race with desires base must find its place in Maya's maze by giving up the chase and turning to God for grace.
Nice. That had a nice little ring to it.
Just when you think you've won, then you're dead and all is done.
Ironic, isn't it?
This life is a jungle and it's fatal to fumble, but if we stay humble, Krishna catches when we stumble.
Very nice. Very good.
The golden years are just full of fears and tears.
Mm-hmm.
It's a slim chance that we will choose to advance, but leaving this body is like changing your pants. Eventually, Krishna will entrance with a sidelong glance, and we can find transcendence.
Well, that was a lengthy one. Wow.
It's the karmic wheel when people steal. To stop it, you must kneel and find Krishna's grace and get a taste of existence outside time and space.
Nice. That's a deterrent against a principle-less, ethic-less way of living. You know, I was just thinking... Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Factually, materially, bankrupt is where we end up. It's all temporary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Haribol.
Thank you for those. How many were there? How much output did you have today?
Oh, 10. Had to make up for yesterday.
Yeah. So your average is 5 for the 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking not only do we have to maintain sobriety and focus in this dangerous ocean or jungle of the material world, but if we do that, if we do our part and exercise a little restraint and discipline, then what's impossible? Because it's impossible. Even when you are sober and even when you are focused, it's impossible to cross the Pacific Ocean by swimming or to cross through the Amazon jungle by walking. But some people will say, well, because it's impossible, why should I even try? I'm going to die anyway, so why not just enjoy while I could? But the point is, it's not by remaining focused, it's not by remaining sober that you then have the ability to cross the ocean or to navigate the jungle. But when you do your part, Krishna does his part. He does what you could not do on your own. So if you show that willingness and that sincerity and that repentance, really, there has to be an element of regret. Krishna, I'm ashamed that I made that wrong turn way back when, and I want to make up for it. I want to do a 180. I want to steer myself back home, back to Godhead. Then Krishna does what you couldn't do on your own. He makes sure with his unlimited power that you do, against all odds, navigate that ocean and come to the other side cross through that jungle and reach safety. That's the real benefit. It's not that we empower ourselves to deal with overpowering negative resources and things coming against us, but that when we do our little part, then we invoke the full power of the omnipotent supreme personality of God, and its success is assured. So thanks, your verses kind of triggered that extra realization on my part on this Wednesday morning. Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji, that actually gives me a couple more.
Send them to me. Huh?
We've got to give in to win.
Very good. Nice. Nice. We've got to give in to win. I'll post all of those happily. All right. Thanks, Rob, for joining us on Zoom. Sanja, Hare Krishna. My Bobby. She did hear Radha. She posted Radha. So she'll consider that for a name. Natasha said she did get her calendar. That's great. Chad, thanks for joining us. Kushum, Brent, Shali. All right. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.